Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond. My name is Sequeira and I'll be taking you through today's match. Before starting, we at SplitSecond want to thank everyone for your constant support and suggestions on all social media. We just reached 5k subscribers. You can continue to support us by sharing and liking this video, subscribing if you haven't yet, by becoming a patron, or simply by not skipping the ads on our videos. This week we are joined by Rodrigo Pinheiro, a regular at our LGS and Discord who cracks some funny jokes and also enjoys spicy tags. For our commanders, I brought my brew for a combo/aggro Omnath Locust of Mana. Luís is on his Yawgmoth. Rodrigo brought his Winota focused Blood Pod, and Baal is playing one of his favorites, Jhoira Weatherlight Captain. Baal won the role and he's the one starting. He has Arid Mesa and Bloodstained Mire for lands. Mana Vault can ramp him towards a turn 2 Jhoira, while Everflowing Chalice and Pithing Needle can be cast to either advance his plan or affect someone else's, all the while drawing cards. Deflecting SWAT is an excellent all-rounder, and Rolling Earthquake can be used to control the board as needed. I kept a single forest, but because I have Carpet of Flowers and Compost versus a mostly blue deck and a mono black deck, I felt safe enough to keep this after a mulligan. Lotus Field can be a combo piece or just a land if I feel safe to play it versus Baal's moon effects. Manglehorn and Force of Vigor can help deal with some shenanigans, and the Great Eng is a solid engine. Luís has 3 lands: Swamp, Crystal Vein, and Lake of the Dead. 2 of these are huge for ramping him up. He has a Lotus Petal also to push his mana, Toxic Deluge to control the board, and a Scroll Rack for card selection, although he's missing a deck shuffler to actually help him see fresh new cards. Rodrigo is missing white mana in his double forest into Overgrown Tomb land base. He has Deafening Silence, which is super solid versus Luís and Baal. Vampiric Tutor represents unlimited potential, and Avacyn's Pilgrim can help him find that missing white symbol he needs to cast Tymna and the Hate enchantment. Court of Calling is also an excellent tutor. Let's see how this game plays out. Baal opens the match with an island followed by a mana vault. I follow that up with a forest and a Carpet of Flowers. Baal isn't super pleased to be used as a mana source. I pass to Luís, who plays a Swamp and a Lotus Petal. Everyone has fast mana. Rodrigo gets to his turn playing an untapped Overgrown Tomb and following that up with his Avacyn's Pilgrim. He passes to Baal. Solid first turns all around. Baal plays Bloodstained Mire and cracks it for a basic mountain, refusing to ramp me up. So rude. He casts a turn 2 Jhoira. He follows that with a free Everflowing Chalice, getting his first trigger. He hits a Mana Crypt and gets another Jhoira draw. He taps that for a Prismatic Lens, shooting another draw trigger and becoming a bit scarier. I decide to respond to the trigger by casting Force of Vigor, targeting his Vault and the Crypt, while exiling the Great Eng, mostly to reduce the odds of interaction from Baal and hoping he doesn't go off super crazily on his next turn. My force is turned against me when Baal casts Deflecting SWAT, making me 3 for 1 as my carpet gets destroyed and the Lotus Petal is targeted, which Luís cracks for mana in response. Baal keeps things moving by casting Manifold Key and using the Prismatic Lens to untap Mana Vault. After drawing from Jhoira, he casts a Pithing Needle, drawing again, and then names Yawgmoth, single-handedly destroying Luís as well this turn. 2 players on turn 2. He then passes to me. Completely ravaged out of this match, I draw and pass. Excruciating. Luís plays Gemstone Caverns and casts Duress on Baal. At this point, Rodrigo sort of hints at having a Collector Oof, so we consider our options between the Rapid Hybridization and Rolling Earthquake. In the end, Baal is made to discard the hybridization, so he goes deeper into affecting another player's board. Luís then passes. Rodrigo starts his turn by casting a Vampiric Tutor before drawing. He gets the Oof for lack of mana for another option like Meltdown. He plays a forest and casts the Oof, passing to Baal. Baal starts his turn by losing the Crypt roll on his upkeep and getting pinged by the Vault on his draw step. Baal plays an Ancient Tomb and casts Rolling Earthquake for 2, losing a bunch more life in the process. The board is cleared of all but Jhoira. So much for parity. The Izzet player follows things up by using the key to untap the Mana Vault and casts Aetherflux Reservoir. Jhoira triggers. He casts Grafdigger's Cage, triggering his commander once more, the Reservoir, and triggering Luís in the process, since he is now locked out of several shenanigans. He goes to combat, attacking Luís with Jhoira. With that, he passes to me. I do the draw go. Turbo turns, guys. Luís starts his turn playing a swamp. He casts Toxic Deluge for 3 just to delay Baal as much as possible and then passes to Rodrigo, hoping he can further help the table. Rodrigo finds a white mana source, a Sacred Foundry, which he plays untapped to cast Deafening Silence. This is a really solid way to slow Jhoira down while also hitting Luís and his crazy turns. Baal responds with a Mystical Tutor for a paradoxical outcome. Since his winning turn requires storming anyway, he'll need to get rid of that, and so he digs for the draws. Rodrigo passes. Baal's turn starts with him banking on the 50-50 and winning the crypt roll. He then uses the Manifold Key to untap the vault before the draw step ping. He recasts Jhoira and plays an Arid Mesa, passing to me. It's my turn and there's still nothing to see here. Baal cracks his fetch for a Volcanic Island on my end step, which is more than I've done in 3 turns. He also uses this moment, due to the Deafening Silence, to cast Paradoxical Outcome, returning all of his mana ramp back to his hand and drawing 5 cards. Luís is now playing. He plays Crystal Vein and casts Scroll Rack. It resolves and he passes. Rodrigo plays a second Forest and casts Tana. He's pretty much ready to start punching our faces. Are we ready for it? Baal plays and cracks a Scalding Tarn, hitting all them fetches. He gets another island from it. He casts a Prismatic Lens just because they don't hurt his face during the match, and draws from Jhoira while gaining 1 from the reservoir. Having no way to deal with the Deafening Silence, he discards to hand size and passes. It's my turn and I also have to discard to hand size from all these cards I've been hoarding, passing afterwards. Luís starts his turn activating his Scroll Rack for 3. He passes afterwards. Rodrigo gets to his turn all up and ready. He punches Luís with Tana, getting himself 2 Saproling tokens for the trouble. He then plays Llanowar and Findorn Helves. 2 spells in 1 turn, Baal is triggered. With that, Rodrigo hands his turn. Baal begins his with a Spell's Kite, drawing a card and gaining life from Reservoir. He plays Academy Ruins and then casts an Izzet Signet, getting himself another draw and more life. He passes to me. I finally hit a forest. At long last. I cast a Collector Oof, which gets counterspelled by Baal. I'm not mad at this because I had announced it, and would rather the Oof goes than my compost. With that, I pass. Luís draws a familiar card and plays Lake of the Dead, floating 1 black mana from the swamp he chose to sacrifice. He casts Necropotence, an innocent card through and through, and Baal negates it. 2 counter spells in a row. Luís passes to Rodrigo. Rodrigo starts his turn casting a Rurik Thar to further complicate matters to Baal and Luís. He goes to combat and hits Luís with Tana and both Saprolings, making a couple more. He's fairly pleased with his steadily growing board presence, passing to Baal. Baal starts by cycling a Rebuild. He then plays and sacrifices the Fire Islet, clearly not happy with the cards at hand. He then goes ahead and casts Mana Vault, drawing yet another and taking the Rurik Thar punch right in the face. 6 damage. After that, he passes to me. My turn is fairly simple. I draw and play a Bonner's Enclave and cast Manglehorn. I use it to destroy the reservoir, mostly to make a potential winning turn for Baal more awkward and to staunch his life gain. That's it for my turn 3, back to everyone else's turn 7. Luís' turn is also short and sweet. He plays a blocker, his commander, and he passes to Rodrigo. Rodrigo plays Curbland. He casts Tymna to really start looking towards getting ahead. He then attacks Baal with his Rurik Thar to take away more non-creature spells, while he sends 2 Saprolings to each of the other 2 players, guaranteeing 2 more draws. Manglehorn and Yawgmoth each kill one of these plantlings by blocking them. Rodrigo draws 3 from Tymna before passing. Baal draws and casts Urza, which nets him a draw from Jhoira as well. He gets a fairly big construct token onto the battlefield. He's super happy about it blocking Rurik Thar, until he realizes the token enters tap due to Manglehorn. With a spare mana from the vault, he plays Manifold Key, drawing again from Jhoira and taking 6 from Rurik Thar. He then plays an island and passes to me. On my turn, I cast Duskwatch Recruiter. I play Lotus Field, sacrificing both my lands and hoping Baal does not have a Moon effect up to send me back to the Stone Age. After that, I pass. Luís draws the 3rd card from the top since he activated Scroll Rack, meaning he now has a new badge to look at. He passes to Rodrigo, not doing anything. On Rodrigo's upkeep, my Duskwatch Recruiter flips its hair back and forth. Oh, and it also becomes a Krallen Horde Howler. We move to combat once again. Beater time. Rurik Thar attacks Baal once more, while the Saprolings head straight at Luís. The Saproling gets blocked while everything else passes. Baal is now really low on chances to cast non-creature spells due to Rurik Thar's static ability. Rodrigo draws 2 from Tymna. He casts Feybarrow Elder, which adds to the beats pile. Wraths anyone? He then plays a tap Blood Crypt and passes. Baal untaps his Mana Vault on his upkeep. He plays a mountain, showing us the full might of his flood before passing to me. On my turn, I play Maze of Ith, which is a decent way to prevent my face from being squashed, as that seems to be the current kink at our table. I cast Compost while taking the Rurik Thar damage. In response, Luís casts Insidious Dreams, also taking damage. He discards Culling the Weak and Entomb and searches his library for a Vilis and a Blast Zone. One is a great engine with Rurik Thar, while the other can finally free him from the wretched Pithing Needle. I then pass to him. On his turn, Luís uses Lake of the Dead and Crystal Vein, plus the tapping of his other lands, to aggressively cast his Vilis. His board is set, so he passes. Rodrigo casts an Imperial Recruiter for a Night of Autumn. He casts it, destroying the Grafdigger's Cage. With that out of the way, he is happy to add his Winota to the table to generate extra value, and we move to combat. Rodrigo attacks me with Rurik Thar and Baal with a Saproling, triggering his lieutenant twice. I activate the Maze of Ith to remove Rurik Thar from combat. He finds a Kambal, further complicating the casting of non-creature spells, and a Sylvan Safekeeper. Kambal attacks Baal, it rhymes, and the other one attacks me. They both get blocked while being indestructible. He passes with quite a gigantic board. On Baal's upkeep, my werewolf loses its fascination over bones, flipping back. Baal plays an island and, pushed into quite a tight spot, is forced to pass to me. On my upkeep, the recruiter is back to howling at the moon. I cast Omnath, which is oh so threatening, and pass. Luís plays Blast Zone and then casts Bastion of Remembrance, taking a heavy hate damage and drawing that same amount of cards. His life goes pretty low, but that's the price of power. He gets a human token out of this and moves to clean up, discarding to hand size but not putting any black cards into his graveyard. Rodrigo starts his turn with combat, attacking me with Rurik Thar. Maze of Ith does its thing. Winota triggers but doesn't find anything. On his second main phase, Rodrigo casts a Sanctum Prelate, naming the number 2, which is a number we tend to avoid. Then, he surprises us with an Eldritch Evolution, sacrificing Winota and finding a Syra of Insanity while Rurik Thar punches the owner. The rest of the table actually takes a break as it realizes that Eldritch Evolution exiles itself. We've been cheating all this time. Then, our horror increases when the Syra hits the board. We move to his end step and discard our hands. Because people discarded 4 black cards, I draw 4 from Compost, ready to discard them by Baal's end step. On Baal's upkeep, my wolf abandons its fur coat. We spend a bit looking for options and conclude that attacking the guest could be a pretty good solution. Baal gives his construct some good old unblockable with the Manifold Key before moving to his end step. I discard 4 cards and he discards the Divining Top he just drew, which would cost him 8 precious life to cast. On my upkeep, I respond to my recruiter's urges to become a werewolf once again by activating him. I don't find anything. It transforms and I draw. There's nothing to be done, so I discard my hand and move to Luís. He attacks Rodrigo with Vilis. Looking to defuse some of the table's need to get him out ASAP, he blocks with Rurik Thar, letting him die and changing the game's dynamics a bit. On his second main phase, Luís casts Dark Ritual, triggering Kambal and losing 2 life. Vilis draws him 2 cards and Compost draws me 1. Luís activates Blast Zone for 1, finally freeing his Yawgmoth. He plays Castle Lochtwain and moves to his end step, so we both discard. Compost draws me 1 from Luís discarding a Bitter Blossom. Rodrigo goes to his turn and attacks Baal with the Sire and the Feybarrow Elder. I remove the Elder from combat as a part of the deal for attacking Rodrigo, and Baal double blocks the Sire of Insanity, trading it for his own Urza. I draw 1 from Compost. Rodrigo has been officially defused. He plays a luxury suite on his second main, moving to his end step. Baal activates the Academy Ruins to recover his Divining Top as his next turn's draw. Baal casts the top, which enters tapped and triggers Kambal. He draws one from Jhoira and activates the top afterwards. With that, his turn ends. We get to my turn. I attack Luís, provoking his greed from Village. He thinks for a bit, but ends up putting his human token in front of Omnath. I tap a mana for green, pumping my commander. He sacrifices the token for Yawgmoth, triggering the Bastion and Village to draw 2. He puts the counter on Kambal. On my second main phase, I cast a Scavenging Ooze with my floating mana, and Baal responds with Academy Ruins, recovering his Mystic Forge to the top of his library. I pass. Luís starts his turn casting LED and triggering Kambal, drawing 2. He finds and plays a Swamp and a Memnite. He then sacrifices the Swamp to the Lake of the Dead and casts Grey Merchant of Asphodel, nearly killing Baal, leaving Rodrigo one Village swipe from death and regaining a bunch of life. Luís moves to combat and attacks Rodrigo. I act like a merciful angel and save our guest from death to both save my butt and let the viewers revel in a guest not being the first to die in our games. Luís passes to Rodrigo. On his upkeep, my werewolf simmers down. Rodrigo attacks me with the Sanctum Prelate. I block with the Ooze, activating it once and exiling Winota. Rodrigo moves to his second main and casts Aladarmi's Call for a Linvala, which he casts to try and slow Luís down. I pass priority and Luís cracks his LED, discarding Felwar Stone and generating 3 black mana. Luís gives Manglehorn -1/-1 with Village twice, drawing 4. He uses the Chunky Demon one last time to kill Knight of Autumn. Once it's clear that he won't kill my Ooze, I activate the Recruiter and find myself a Selvala. Rodrigo passes and Luís slept on the fact that he could have killed Baal this turn in response to Linvala being cast. Baal is barely alive, so he activates his top and passes. Misery is a butterfly. On my upkeep, my wolf flips once again. So flaky. I play a Force, cast Selvala, and pass. Luís starts his turn playing a Swamp, and then reanimating my Kogla, triggering Kambal. He draws 2, then draws 6 from Village. I draw 1 from Compost, and then Kogla fights Linvala. It's not a fair fight. The angel goes down. Luís casts Genesis Chamber, drawing 2 more to Kambal and Village's triggers. He follows that up with an Ayara, killing Baal, our first casualty. Genesis Chamber triggers. He follows that with an Ornithopter, making another token. Luís activates Scroll Rack for 10. He attacks me with Village and I save my butt with Maze of Ith once again. Rodrigo is attacked by Yawgmoth. Luís moves to his end step and discards 3 black cards, giving me 3 with Compost. Rodrigo attacks me with the Elder. I block with Omnath and generate 4 green mana. He moves to end step and I exile 4 creatures from graveyards, feeding my Ooze and letting Omnath die to the damage it took. On my turn, I generate 7 green mana with Selvala. I cast Vivian Reed, losing life to Kambal. I use her to shoot down Village. Luís activates Yawgmoth, taking 1 counter from my Ooze, drawing 1 and triggering the Bastion. I remember that my werewolf should have flipped on my upkeep. I forget a draw trigger from Compost. At this point, we're exhausted from 2 huge games of Commander. This was actually game 2, we'll give you game 1 at another time. I play an Umezawa's Jite and equip it to the Ooze, attacking Rodrigo while forgetting it's all peanuts as Luís can kill the blocker with Yawgmoth. Luís does just that, sacrificing Ornithopter and killing the blocking Imperial Recruiter. Bastion triggers. On my second main phase, I cast Exploration and then exile Village and Ornithopter with the Ooze. I play Strip Mine and Wasteland and destroy Luís's black mana sources in Lake of the Dead and Castle Locthwain. Finally, I pass. Luís activates Scroll Rack for 4. He plays Phyrexian Tower, regaining black mana sources. He sacrifices a Mir token and triggers a Bastion. He activates Yawgmoth to start eating away at my Selvala and draw another card. Finally, he casts Butcher Ghoul, triggering Ayara and the Genesis Chamber. Luís moves to combat to attack me with Kogla. I remove it from combat, but its trigger does kill my Compost. Now Luís can finally win. He is able to sacrifice the Ghoul to Yawgmoth and give up to 1 target -1/-1, none in this case, while triggering Undying. When the ghoul's Undying resolves, he gets a mirror token from Genesis Chamber, which he can then sack with Yawgmoth to put a -1/-1 counter on the undead ghoul, nullifying his +1/+1 counter. He can then sacrifice the ghoul again and restart the loop while draining us with Ayara and the Bastion until we both die. Thank you for joining us through this match, everyone. Luís's Yawgmoth endured the grind and came out on top. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons and especially Izanagi, Stefan, TJ Rapp, Mike Purr, Ajimo, and Iglegal, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing, or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Come with us again next week for a new set of commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.